Welcome to the deep dive. We go through a whole stack of material, find the really important stuff, and get it straight to you.
That's the plan.
Today we're diving into a company that's just, well, everywhere right now. Novo Nordisk, the pharma giant behind Ozempic, Wegovy, ticker's NVO.
Yep, got quite a bit here. A detailed company report, key points from their Q1 2025 earnings call transcript, and just some recent news headlines floating around.
And our job, to pull it all together, we want to get past the headlines, really understand what's driving NVO, what challenges they're facing, and what moves they're making right now.
For sure. I mean, the demand is obviously huge, but looking through this, it's definitely not all smooth sailing. There are some real hurdles.
Absolutely. Okay, so looking at the stock itself, the report had it around $70.91 USD.
Yeah, around there. And actually down a bit today, like 2.64% or so. So you see that volatility, even with the big picture story.
Right, day-to-day noise. Let's ignore that for a sec.
Yeah.
How did the actual business do in Q1 2025? What did that earnings call tell us about the engine?
Well, the engine's still running really strong, mostly. Q1 numbers, on the face of it, were pretty powerful. Sales up 19% in Danish kroner,
Okay.
which, if you strip out currency effects, is about 18% growth at constant exchange rates. CER, operating profit. Even better, up 20% CER.
Wow.
And earnings per share, diluted EPS, saw a nice 15% bump to DKK 6.53. So yeah, headline numbers still looking pretty good, significant growth.
Those are still huge numbers for a company this size. Where's that growth really coming from specifically?
Okay, so the absolute standout based on the earnings call summary is their obesity care division. That's Wegovy, primarily.
Right.
Sales there just exploded, up 65% globally at CER.
65%. Just wow.
It really is something. And if you look deeper, the U.S. grew 40%, which is massive on its own.
Yeah.
International operations grew 137%. Just incredible. Overwhelmingly, Wegovy driving that.
Okay.
Now, their core GLP-1 diabetes business, Ozempic and Rybelsus, that grew too, up a healthy 11% CER globally. But obesity care is just, it's the rocket fuel right now.
That kind of growth really tells a story about their market position. How dominant are they really in this whole GLP-1 space?
Oh, extremely. The sources are really clear on this. They are the global GLP-1 volume leader by a lot.
Yep.
They serve nearly two-thirds, like almost 66% of all patients globally on GLP-1s. Just think about that scale for a minute.
That's incredible market share.
Yeah. In the U.S., it's over 50% by total monthly prescriptions, and internationally, over 72% GLP-1 volume share. They really are the dominant player by volume.
Feels like a fortress.
Yep.
The report gives them that wide economic moat rating. What exactly builds that moat for Novo Nordisk?
Right. So a wide moat means they've got these strong, sustainable advantages, keeping competitors at bay, protecting profits long term.
Makes sense.
For Novo, it starts with what analysts call intangible assets. So patents are huge. The semaglutide patents for Ozempic and Wegovy are incredibly valuable, protect them from generics for years.
Okay, patents. What else?
Then you've got all their clinical trial data proving safety, effectiveness, regulatory approvals all over the world, and just sheer brand recognition. Doctors, patients, they know these names, they trust them. There's inertia there,
Yeah, those intangibles definitely make sense.
Yeah.
Patents, data, brand. But the report also mentioned something else, their manufacturing capacity. Call it crucial and rapidly strengthening. That feels more tangible.
And this, I think, is becoming maybe their biggest competitive advantage right now. It's fascinating. The sources really stress the enormous, truly massive investment they're making in building out manufacturing.
You mean building factories?
Exactly. Billions and billions going into new facilities for API. That's the active drug ingredient itself.
Right.
And also fill finish. That's putting the drug into the pens, the syringes, packaging it all up safely and sterilely.
So it's not just having the drug, it's being able to actually make enough of it and get it out the door.
Precisely. And building that kind of capacity for complex biologic drugs like GLP-1s with all the quality control, the regulatory hoops, it's incredibly hard, takes a long time, and costs a fortune.
Okay.
Very few companies can match the speed and scale of what Novo is doing here. So this investment, it's not just meeting today's demand, it's actively building this huge wall, this barrier for anyone trying to compete seriously down the line. If you can't make enough product, you can't grab market share, right?
That really reframes the investment strategy. It's not just spending, it's moat building. Wow. Okay, but even with that dominance and growth, you mentioned hurdles. The earnings call pointed to a big one, something that actually made them lower their guidance for the full year. What happened?
Yeah, this is a key point, especially for the US market. The big challenge they flagged was the impact of compounded GLP-1s.
Compounded. You mean like pharmacies mixing their own version?
Yeah.
I thought that was only allowed during shortages.
Well, that's exactly the issue Novo is highlighting, based on the earnings call and news reports. Compounding was allowed under FDA rules when semaglutide was officially on the drug shortage list.
Okay.
But the FDA took semaglutide off that list. And according to Novo and how they interpret the rules, that means widespread compounding of semaglutide is now generally unlawful, except maybe for very specific, rare patient cases.
So it's not just normal competition.
Yeah.
It's potentially illegal copies taking away sales.
Mm.
How big of an impact did this have enough to cut their forecast?
Apparently, yes. It's significant because it's pulling a lot of patients and therefore revenue away from their official FDA-approved products like Wegovy and Ozempic.
How many patients are we talking about?
Market estimates mentioned in the sources suggest it could be over 1 million patients in the U.S. using compounded GLP-1.
1 million.
Yeah, and maybe around 70% of those are using some kind of compounded semaglutide. So that's a huge shadow market, basically.
Yeah.
And the direct result was they had to revise their full year 2025 guidance down. Sales growth now expected 13.21% CER. Operating profit growth 16.24% CER. Still growing, obviously, but lower than they thought before Q1 showed the full impact of this compounding.
1 million patients is just staggering. What's Novo doing about it? How are they fighting back?
They've got a few angles, according to the sources. First, they're pushing hard against what they see as unlawful compounding. They're expecting the FDA to step up enforcement now that the shortage designation is gone.
Okay, leaning on the regulators.
Yeah, and Novo is also going after unlawful compounders themselves with legal action, trying to cut off foreign supplies of raw ingredients, that sort of thing.
So legal and regulatory pressure. What about making it easier for patients to just get the real stuff?
Yeah.
Access and cost have been big issues, right?
Absolutely. That's the other critical part of their strategy. They're launching some major initiatives to help patients get authentic, branded Wegovy. Things like a self-pay, direct-to-patient option. One press release mentioned an offer like $499 a month initially through their own pharmacy service, NovoCare. That aims at people without good insurance coverage.
Okay, I'm trying to make the price more manageable for some.
Right. They're also working with telehealth companies to make getting a prescription smoother. And maybe, most importantly, they're working hard to get Wegovy onto major insurance formularies.
Insurance coverage.
Exactly. The source specifically calls out getting onto CVS's national template for obesity drugs starting July 1st, 2025. Getting preferred status on big plans like that is crucial for broader patient access and affordability.
So legal pressure, easier direct access, better insurance coverage. Seems pretty comprehensive. What do they think the result will be?
Well, their updated forecast for the year, based on the earnings call summary, it assumes these actions, plus hopefully more FDA enforcement, will actually start reducing the use of compounded versions. They expect patients to start shifting back to branded Wegovy in the second half of 2025.
Okay, so they're basically betting these strategies work later this year. But compounding aside, what about regular competition? Eli Lilly is a huge player too, right? Mounjaro, Zepbound.
Oh, for sure. Competition is real, and Lilly is definitely their main rival with very effective drugs. No doubt about that.
So how does Novo see their edge?
Well, they still point to their global leadership in terms of patient volume, and they highlight specific advantages for Wegovy. It has that differentiated label, especially the proven cardiovascular benefits from the SELECT trial. It's a big selling point.
The heart benefits, right?
Exactly. They're also trying to get Wegovy approved for MSH. That's a type of fatty liver disease, which could open up another patient group. Plus, they emphasize the massive amount of safety data they have on semaglutide over 33 million patient years. And again, their commercial muscle and that huge manufacturing investment we talked about.
So leaning on existing strengths in data while building out capacity. What about the future? What's coming down the R&D pipeline?
Yeah, the pipeline is absolutely key for their long-term story, extending that moat. The sources mention several important things. Cagrilima looks like the next big thing for obesity. It combines semaglutide with another drug.
Okay.
The big phase 3 trial, REDEFINE 2, finished with positive results. They're aiming to file for approval in Q1 2026.
So a next-gen obesity drug. What else?
Another really interesting one is an oral version of semaglutide, a 25 milligram pill specifically for obesity, basically Wegovy in a pill form.
Oh, that would be huge for convenience.
Absolutely. They've already submitted that to the FDA in the U.S. A decision is expected around the end of 2025. Then there's the MASH indication for Wegovy we mentioned. FDA gave it priority review, decision expected in the second half of this year, plus other earlier stage stuff like amycretin phase 2 data coming soon. So yeah, lots cooking in R&D.
It sounds like they're just pouring money everywhere, R&D, manufacturing.
They really are. The capital expenditure, CapEx, it's huge. They're expecting to spend around DKK 65 billion on CapEx in 2025.
65 billion Danish kroner. That's what, over 9 billion US dollars?
Yeah.
Just this year?
Yeah. And like we said, almost all of that is going into expanding the global supply chain, building those API and fill finish plants for current drugs and the ones coming through the pipeline.
How does spending that kind of money affect the financials right now, though?
Well, the sources point out that these massive investments, plus costs from buying Catalent, that manufacturing partner they acquired, and higher marketing spend, did push up operating expenses in Q1.
Okay.
And it led to a slightly lower gross margin compared to last year. But the company basically frames this as, we have to invest now for the future growth.
Necessary pain for future gain sort of thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They also had a net financial loss in Q1, mainly due to currency hedging and financing the Catalent deal. And while free cash flow was actually up year over year, it was lower than they initially hoped because of that compounding issue hitting sales penetration. So they revised their free cash flow outlook down for the year, too.
So short-term hits to margins and cash flow because they're prioritizing the build-out and fighting the compounding problem. What's the big picture takeaway then? The long view.
The long view, based on all this, still looks incredibly strong. The fundamental opportunity, this huge unmet need for diabetes and especially obesity treatments worldwide that hasn't changed, it's massive.
Right.
Novo's ability to keep capturing that opportunity really comes down to, well, executing well commercially, getting that pipeline approved and launched, and crucially, getting all that new manufacturing capacity up and running efficiently.
And what did the analysts think? That report mentioned a fair value estimate.
Yeah, the analyst estimate cited was around $83.21 USD per share, which, compared to the current price, around 71 Waller, suggests they see potential upside if Novo can navigate these challenges and execute.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this mean for you listening to this? Why should you care about this deep dive into NVO?
Well, I think it's a fantastic case study, right? You've got this dominant company facing just incredible growth, this massive wave of demand. But at the same time, they're dealing with very real, very specific challenges, this compounding issue, intense competition, and the sheer, almost unbelievable cost of investing to meet demand and secure the future.
So it's about understanding that tension.
Exactly. Understanding that dynamic, that push and pull between the huge opportunity and the very real costs and hurdles of actually grabbing it, that's critical for evaluating where a company like NVO might be headed.
And that leaves us with something to chew on, maybe a final thought.
Yeah, I think the provocative question is this. You see these billions and billions being poured into factories, into R&D, all to meet this demand and lock down future market share. How should you, as someone thinking about this space, weigh that immediate impact, the hit to margins, the lower free cash flow right now, against the potential long-term prize of truly capturing this vast global obesity market over the next 5-10 years?
That really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Okay, we have definitely done a deep dive into the Novo Nordisk story today, pulling out the key pieces from the reports, the earnings call, the news.
Hope it helps cut through some of the noise out there.
Our goal is always to get you thoroughly informed, quickly, on complex stuff like this. And if you found this deep dive valuable, if it helped you understand NVO a bit better, please do us a huge favor.
Yeah, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell.
Seriously, your support means everything. It lets us keep doing these deep dives, digging into the information that matters to you.
We really appreciate you tuning in. Hope you join us next time.